Greetings, gentlemen. Today I'd like to talk about what I can only call the offense industry. The offense industry is, of course, simply an outcropping, an outpouring of feminism, capital F feminism, social justice warriordom, etc. And you might know it by other names, Elevator Gate, Gamergate, and most recently, and conspicuously, Shirtgate. You may or may not know the story, but for the benefit of those who don't know the entire story, or the story at all, a famed astrophysicist, very well known in this field, was wearing a shirt that apparently had cartoonish women depicted on it, and this was called sexist and apparently prevented women from entering STEM fields. Later on, he offered a tearful, yes, he was crying, apology in the public, sorry that he offended women and feminists and so on and so forth. We all know the deal. This is, of course, called Shirtgate. Those of you may or may not know, irrelevant. What I want to talk about, however, is the growing joke of the offense industry. Now, it is a joke for twofold reasons. The first reason that it is a joke is the obvious reason, the reason that's obvious to everyone. All the social justice warriors, the angry feminists, the people raising their arms and eyebrows at everything, well, about nonsense. An astrophysicist wore a shirt. This apparently prevented women from entering STEM fields. I don't think we need to dissect that very much to see how silly it is. It's silly. Yes, move on. But beyond this, there's something that needs to be addressed and talked about. Now, for a while, there have been in-betweeners, I call them, counters to the feminist social justice warrior offense industry. Some of you might know Sargon of Akkad, the Mundane Matt, and most recently Internet Aristocrat, who is checked out, and I will mention the reason for doing that in a bit. And these gentlemen make it a point to address all these silly claims within the respective gate realm, right? The domain of the gate. Gamergate, Shirtgate, Elevator Gate. Everything's a gate. Everything is a portal to the nether realm, it seems. The problem is, if everything's a portal to the nether realm, the counters, the in-betweeners, are getting sucked into it too, and they're becoming part of the nether region. They're becoming part of the Stygian mists, the burning coals, however you want to term it. They have become part of the nether realm. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's quite simple. We know that the offense industry is, which is an overarching term I'm using to describe the whole I'm offended by this, give me money attitude. We know that it's just about money and attention and so on. And the problem is we have people on the opposite end, supposedly on the opposite end, the in-betweeners, who in addressing these points that the social justice warriors, etc., make, they are sort of buying into it to a certain extent. They are adding fuel to the fire. And indeed, I've been guilty of this to a certain extent in the past as well. I should have never made a video about that woman walking in New York being quote-unquote harassed, because I think these things and these events are essentially beneath our attention. You might call that arrogant, but it's not just beneath my attention, it's beneath yours as a viewer and listener as well. And what essentially these guys have done, Sargon of Akkad, Mundane Matt, and the various other in-betweeners, is they've turned it into their own for-profit industry. Now, before everyone goes off about, oh, I'm criticizing for-profit, that's not what I'm criticizing specifically. And let me go and explain that a bit. There's absolutely nothing wrong with making money for your work. And if I can make some money by making videos illustrating human beings and explaining the nature of man, then I'm very, very glad of it. Probably the most enjoyable activity I can engage in, as well as the most satisfactory profit I can make. But I'm talking about here is cheap commercialization, and we have seen this to a certain extent in the manosphere in certain sectors, and you know which sector I'm talking about, the McRed Pills sector. But specifically, these guys who are in the offense industry, and they effectively are, I mean, Mundane Matt and Sargon of Akkad, they've just turned it into a free-for-all. And they're really missing the big picture. They're missing it by not only a mile, but tens, if not hundreds of miles. And interestingly enough, the internet aristocrat I've heard has checked out of the scene because he realized it was becoming commercialized bullshit and he didn't want to be any part of that anymore. You see, what anti-feminism has become, if it wasn't all, but might have been this the entire time, and that has long been my suspicion, it's just been a sort of tit-for-tat, back and forth of endless disputations and arguments that get you nowhere and lead you no further down the road of truth. That is what the offense industry is. That is what it is for both sides, frankly. Now, I'm not saying, not positing that people like Thunderfoot and Mundane Matt and the in-betweeners are the same as feminists, hardly. But the angle they're taking, the perspective, turning it into a commercialized product, and this is the problem, I think, ultimately. The problem is not making money off of things, but doing it in a cheap and commercialized fashion that becomes non-productive, essentially, in the end. Productive in the sense of it doesn't add any intellectual production to anything, and it's just completely transparent. We have seen now the emergence of what appears to be at least half a dozen different gates, different portals to the nether realm, and each time a portal is opened, they do not attempt to close it. They keep the portal open. Remember, the offense industry propagandists, they are, well, for the most part, attention whores, literally. That is their bread and butter. That's how they're making money. And we would all do well to not add fuel to the fire and not offer them even more attention. And yes, I've been guilty of this in the past. But I think MGTOW is better than this. I think we who are going our own way, we know that the whole anti-feminism thing is at best a waste of time and at worst a amalgam of self-deception and lies and deceit, both for the people pursuing it and the people that they're opposing. Anti-feminism, offense industry, going hand in hand. No. What this does, what the ultimate problem is, when you commercialize something, when you turn it into McRed pills, or in this case, we need to not close the gate by ignoring it, by just letting them rant on and letting the date. We're talking about, in a sense, these gates, the nether realms, opening up. And let's say they have a timer on them, and they do, because all things that are brought to attention have a timer and they dissipate. You keep them open artificially, and so we have multiple portals across the barren landscape of the internet opening up and remaining open. And the demons, the creatures of hell or the creatures of Hades are pouring forth. And this is unfortunately the net result of the in-betweeners trying to combat this and constantly resurrecting these demons, constantly maintaining the wards on the portal to the nether realms, and they realize it's become their lifeblood, it's become their bread and butter. They need to address these people because that's how they're making a living. Fair enough. However, we who are MGTOW, we realize, I believe at least, that ultimately the most important thing we can do is understand the world, understand ourselves, and specifically understand ourselves as men in this world, as well as understand the universe. What is MGTOW fundamentally about? Understanding and comprehension. We are interested in pursuing the truth. We're interested in pursuing knowledge. All this other stuff, anti-feminism, offense industry, opening up portals to the nether realms for the demonic hordes, not interesting. It's not only not interesting, it makes things worse, and people get distracted and they waste their time. Now, let me give you a good example of this. Now, everyone knows I am on good terms with Girl Writes What. This is what I believe, a form of constructive criticism, but hear me out. And I'm not taking into account her circumstances, the fact that she still works and has to work on a house and has propagated her DNA multiple times. I'm just saying this in an objective sense as much as possible. Just hear me out here. That we all, in some way, shape, or form, miss the old Girl Writes What. You know, the videos with penetrating insights, the ones that illuminated points, even if they weren't penetrating insights, the ones that explained things to people so they understood. Those were the things that brought her fame. Those were the kinds of videos that brought her to the fore. And I found over time that she became too embroiled in this anti-feminism shtick and this anti-feminism nonsense. and she lost sight of what I at least perceived as her original goal, elucidating and illuminating the fundamental nature of the male and female, and explaining to people in comprehensible terms so people could understand. And anti-feminism kind of leads you away from that. You get distracted, you get derailed, and then you no longer, unfortunately, try to pursue the truth. You no longer try to pursue understanding. And I feel, to a certain extent, that that's what happened with Girl Writes What. And no, I'm not taking into account her multiplicity of responsibilities she has in her life. All respect to her for that. I just hope one day, should she have the time again, that she goes back to that. That's where she's shown the most. That's where she's shown the brightest. And yeah, let's hope that she gets back to that. But this is a perfect example of someone getting too embroiled in the offense industry, the back and forth. In her case, I'm not saying it's a matter of profit so much as it's just she got caught up in essentially a never-ending battle that can not be won. But we don't want to lose sight, at least MGTOW, I believe, don't want to lose sight of pursuing knowledge, pursuing truth, and trying to understand the world as it is and on our own terms. And let's face it, the offense industry and Gamergate and all the rest of their ilk, they're not going to help. The in-betweeners are not going to help. They're not even interested in helping men or understanding men. And they're only interested in understanding the world to a limited extent. The extent of, well, how it sort of fits in with their own little agenda, and their little agenda is, as I said, keeping the portals to the nether realms open so the demons keep pouring forth. Some gate opens, in this case Shirtgate, and it goes on and on and on, and then the quote-unquote young Turks bring it up, and everyone is talking about it. And yes, I've been guilty of this to a certain extent. There's nothing wrong with making money for works well done, but let's try not to turn things into commercialized bullshit. And I think that's exactly what the offense industry and the quote-unquote gate culture, the portals to the nether realms, have done. Let's keep on track. Let's keep on trying to understand human beings, men, women, the world, and let's just keep on going our own way. We don't need to even think about the rest of this stuff unless we want to waste our time, and I think we're all better than that. You, me, we're all better than that. Anyway, there will be more content to come. Have a couple of things planned. Thanks for watching, and enjoy your weekend. And as always, may the gods be with you, particularly Zeus, because his thunderbolt is really cool. Take care.